Oh, okay. Welcome. We're starting a new series on developing the self. Okay. Now, to get this, we have to build a little bit the structure of the human being. Because if we want to know how to develop ourselves and our traits, we have to know what are the components that create a person, how do they interact. Okay, so let's go through this. It's somewhat deep, but we'll hopefully flesh it all out. It'll make a lot of sense. When we look at a person, we can see both physically and we'll see on a spiritual level too. There are, let's call them three different ways, three different parts we'll divide the human being up into. So we have the head, okay? The head. The Holy of Holies it's called, the head. Then you have the torso, which is called the essential person, the middle part, the heart. And then you have the lower extremities. These dynamics, the way it plays in is that you have, let's say, thought. It's called either speech or emotion. And then into the world of action. Okay. Now, when we look at these components of the human being, we have to understand an old question that's not so simple. Who is the king of the human being? Is it the head or is it the heart? Now, in the Zohar, the seminal work of mysticism of Kabbalah, it says like this. It says a human being, if he takes his mind, which in Hebrew is the word moach, letter m, the mem sound, he goes from his mind to his heart, which is called the lev, l sound, to the lower part of his body called, it's in charge, the sages tell us the organ is called the liver that shoots out the blood, or is the spiritual component of this lower physical part of the human being. So if you go from the mind, the moach, to the lev, the heart, to the liver, the kaved, and you take the first letters of each, it spells the word melech. Melech means a king. You go from head to heart to action, you are a king. So that would seem to imply that the human being's greater part, his king, is his head. But it's not really so simple. Not at all, really. Because on one hand, yes, the head is on top, right? Human beings walk erect, that their head is the top of them. Animals' head and heart on the same level. And so one level, the one way to understand it is the mind is the king. But another way, what's in the middle is the center point. The heart pumps blood to the brain too. And therefore, in a certain sense, the heart is also going to be the king. We'll have to see how. Now, let's go a little bit deeper to understand. We as human beings are a combination of body and soul, meaning that the body, if it's not enlivened by the soul, it is not going to be able to produce. Okay, you have systems in yourself. You got a brain, but they don't understand. Science cannot tell you what exactly is it that's causing the brain to do what it's doing. That is what's called the aspect of the soul in human being. A human being has a body. The soul enlivens the body and allows the interaction between the two. So really, I'm seeing through my physical eyes, but it's the soul component that can see, doesn't see it like physical, that is connecting with the physical eyes and causing me to see. Now, there are different levels to the soul. Again, it's a little bit confusing because the soul is not a physical entity, and we'll go through this in great detail. But the way the soul is manifest, we talk about in three different levels. That is relevant to the human being. There's two higher levels, which we'll discuss at some other point. One aspect of the soul, which is the lower aspect of the soul that comes down into the person and, so to speak, resides in the person, is called the nefesh, the life force. Okay, the nefesh. And the word lenafesh means to come to rest. It's connected with the body. And actually, that part of the soul is what is considered to be in charge of the physical experiences of the person. It's therefore connected with the liver, as I said to you before, which is, so to speak, the full of blood, and it is somehow seen as the vehicle for the lower part of the person. Now, there is a higher level of the soul that a person gets, and that's called the ruach, which means the wind, and that lines up with the heart. That's a higher level of a human being. Then there is an even higher level, which is called the neshama, which is the word for nishima, breath, and that has its connection with the mind. It's not in the person, but it is connected. Okay, so a person's soul is not limited in the physical world. The nefesh does have some manifestation in the actual body. The ruach, the next level, has a connection, and the neshama, the higher part, is beyond, but it has a connection to the mind of a human being. Now, when a person is young, a little child, they really only have the aspect called nefesh. They have not merited to get their higher level of their soul. And generally speaking, that's one of the reasons that a child is motivated mostly by the physical things. He's not developed, he's not received yet his higher level aspect of his soul called the ruach. That can happen when a child is 13, a boy, 12 when it's a girl. And sometimes if someone's a late bloomer, they might not get it till later. Hopefully they'll get it. And then there's a higher level afterwards that they merit, they get higher aspects of themselves. Now, where is the central aspect of the human being? Well, we can look at it in different ways, say it in different parameters. The sages tell us the essential aspect of the human being is the heart. That is where the action is. That is where you decide who you become. That is where you even have the yearning for the things you want. So really, on one level, the lower part, which we'll call the kaved, the liver, that is a level that's lower than the actual human being. And the human being, which is here in the heart, has to elevate that lower part of themselves, just like we elevate the body. Okay, that's part of the deeper concept. What we're doing here is we're trying to elevate ourselves in the world around us. The neshama, the higher part of our being, is influencing our heart from a higher level, our higher root. It influences that and allows us in our heart to choose what we should be doing. So therefore, there's a strange combination in this relationship of who's the king. The mind has the ability to analyze and decide what we should want, what is proper. And then the mind has the ability to go and to put that on the heart, that the heart should want that. But once the heart wants something, the heart really becomes king. And that's why you see very often people delude themselves because they want something, they rationalize with their mind to get what they want. Once the heart has something it wants, so then the mind is busy trying to attain what the heart wants. So in that sense, the heart is king because it's going to dictate, what actions you take. What you want will produce the lower part of yourself to do certain things. It'll even influence the way you're thinking about it and what you're thinking about how to get what you want. But in one way, the mind is the king because the mind can go first and think with all of its qualities what you should want. and impart that onto the heart. And that's why when a person has a smaller mind, for example, a child, the child wants things that are very petty. Child wants candy. He wants this. He wants that. He wants his pleasures. He doesn't have the greater understanding that he should want something greater. And therefore, a child's mind is smaller, and therefore what he actually wants is lower. When a human being develops, and the ability of the mind to go and to impart onto the heart to want more than that, then a person that will become his world. Okay, but the question is, what should we want? What should you want? So, as we said, when you start out and you're a child, you're young, so kids want their physical pleasures. So the question is, should we stay with that? Okay, I want my pleasure. Well, if you think about it a little bit, you realize that's really very low. Why? Well, a lot of reasons. First of all, the concept of what pleasure, physical pleasures are, is they all work on the same system, the system of being full and then lacking. I ate the giant meal. Oh, I'm full. I don't want any more. You offer me another steak. I'm not going to eat it. I can't. Then I get hungry and I want. And all physical pleasures have the same dynamic because they're in the physical world. And therefore, they leave you high and dry in a certain sense. Because you got it, now you don't really want it. You have to rev it up to try to want more because I don't want it anymore. So first of all, they are limited in their pleasure. Second of all, they're very, a person who chases his whole life and maybe get stuff, may not get stuff. The Talmud says that nobody dies with half of their desires they got. So if that's what you're pursuing, it's kind of a dead end, because if that's all there is, then you want, and then you're going to feel empty and you want more. And not only that, let's say you fine. Let's say you're the one in a trillion who has all of his pleasures and everything is perfect within your world of physical pleasures, and then you die, and then what did it produce? You have nothing, no consciousness that's going to live beyond a physical reality. So what should we strive for? We should strive for pleasures that we want, but that are above the physical realm. Now, doesn't mean physical pleasures are bad. They can be used as a stepping stone. So, for example, when I say to somebody, I say, well, why do you want this physical pleasure? And the answer is because it makes me feel happy. It makes me feel good. Okay, so the goal is not the physical pleasure, it's what it produces. And that experience is something that is beyond a physical thing. Let's give an example. Let's talk about love. Love is not a physical pleasure, although obviously there's the physical connection to it, but love itself is called a spiritual pleasure. That's why it doesn't have a limit. You can't say, "Oh, I love that person. That's enough. I'm full." You can say that. People do say that, but that's not the way to go. The way to go is, well, I could love more. I can expand myself more. And when you speak to people, so every human being, when you say to them, what do they want? And they first tell you physical things. At a certain point, when I say, okay, you have that. Now what do you want? What they're going to say is, I want to feel connected. I want to feel love. I want to feel purpose. They're things that are beyond their limited physical realm. And that's why, really, if somebody wants to feel, say, quite happy, which everyone does, the physical, what your deepest wants are and desires are just physical things, you're going to be kind of deprived. Because you might want them, and when you get them, for that moment, you feel what you'll call happiness, but it'll disappear very, very quickly. So that is the misnomer of the pursuit of happiness. You could pursue something, but it's not a thing that you can get. Happiness is a byproduct of living in a certain way, fulfilling a certain aspect of yourself that will produce happiness. Okay. What is that? So that is, as I said before, the search for a deeper experience of pleasure, which I'm going to call now the experience of wholeness. Okay. I'm going to say this. It's gonna it has a religious connotation for those of you who are less religious, but you have to understand it's important to understand this. Really, we say when you talk about I want love, I want connection, I want to feel this feeling of unity of some sort. Those really are other words we call to experience God. Why? Because when you experience the infinite, there's going to be no greater pleasure than that. Okay? So a human being, that's what we want. We talk about it in a religious context. But every human being could understand and relate to that there's a sense of happiness that I will have when I come to wholeness and I'm expressing myself. Okay? If I'm expressing all of the different qualities that I have, you feel happy. And that really is built into the human being. That's why there's a sense when I want to pursue something I want, something I don't get it, I feel sad. I do get it, I feel happy. The deepest sense of that is built in when you feel you are expressing yourself. Then you feel happy. And when you feel frustrated, you're not expressing yourself, you're not doing what you're supposed to do, you're not living as you should live, you feel an automatic sense of sadness. And the root of that, as I said to you before, really is because in the deepest spiritual sense, is that what you are is an expression of a reflection or a filter or a system to understand godliness, meaning that every person has a certain unique quality to experience that infinite. That's what we call their soul, and that's the experience. So therefore, what should we want? You could want physical things, but as a stepping stone to a greater experience. And therefore, what I want is to feel a sense of wholeness. And if I feel that sense of wholeness, I will automatically feel connected with the infinite because I'll be expressing what it is that I really want. So that's what you should want. That's what we do want. That's why you're listening to this discussion, because the topic of how to express the self is so wired into our consciousness. It is what I am, and therefore that produces the happiness. I want to get the sense of wholeness, and that's what we're striving for. So now what we have to do is we have to get that idea from the head and let our advanced minds understand what I want, and put that on the heart, that the heart should want that too. And that's the power, as we said, of the mind. The mind is the power to rationally understand and use its ability to discern what we should want, what's the right thing to want. We candies when we were kids, now something higher, and then take that and put that into our actual personality of what we want. Now, how does the mind do that? And this is a very deep point we'll go through. But when we talk about the mind, we talk about different aspects of how the thinking process works. We'll get to it. One's called Chokhmah, one's called Bina, the flash understanding and the great detail of understanding, different parts of the brain. But the truth is, there is a root of the thinking process that even is above that. And that is called the Keter, the crown. A crown sits on top of the head. It's not in the person, it's above, which means it's connected to a higher dimension. The crown is bringing from above. It's like, where do ideas come from? Where is this higher connection that I have? There's something above that is connected to who I am. That in the holy language is called Ratzon. Ratzon means the will. And that's the root of what you really, really want. So therefore, if we hook in to the Ratzon, the will that is the tip top of even our thinking processes, and we hook into that, and we bring that down and let our hearts follow our mind, then we are on a great path. Because once the heart is going to understand, ooh, I really want connection. And the way I get connection is if I'm going to be able to express who I am, the true deeper me, then I'm going to feel happiness, I'm going to feel contentment, I'm going to feel I'm alive. So that mind will be able to impart that to the heart, and then the heart will work on what's called shleimus amidos, the completion of your self-expression. Okay, very good. So that is point one. Point one is getting the thought and saying, I am going to go on a journey to be able to really be the ultimate me. And we'll explain why that's not the starting point, which may be covered in other layers. And I got to pull away those layers. And I want to express the ultimate me. And that's going to be my connection to the infinite. And that's going to give me the greatest happiness. So first thing, put your mind, say to your heart, hey, if you want these things, those things, the job, that's all a stepping stone. Don't get stuck in that. Get into the higher expression of human beings. Again, if people unfortunately live in the world where they think that they're animals, so then the whole goal is to be like an animal, which is eat, sleep, procreate. That's whatever it is. But then they don't have the higher yearnings. But human beings do, and we're not animals, and therefore tuning into the higher self will be the process. Okay, so that's mind to heart. I want to create this wanting in myself, and then from there, it's going to affect what I think and what I actually do. Great. Now, I'm going to go a little deeper here, so hang in. As I said to you before, though, we have a lot of layers to who we are. And because we have a lot of layers to who we are, we have to peel away. When the soul and body connect, so there is an intermediary connection. The soul and body connect, so the godly soul connects to the body. But there is an interface. That interface is called the Nefesh Bahamis, which is literally translated as the animal soul. Not animal in the sense that we're animals, but in the sense it's like a life force. It's not the divine connected back to its root. It is rather a life force, like all living things have a life force. That Nefesh Bahamis, that life force, already comes into contact in this world. It's not a spiritual entity. It's a physical entity. This is what, for example, as many of you know, I do Tai Chi. This is what they call Chi. This is the life force, energy. It is not the divine soul. It is a life force that a person has. Now, it's very complicated what exactly it is, but there is this sense that it's not a spiritual thing, even though you can't measure it. You can't measure it. Maybe you can feel it. You can't feel something. But it's not spiritual. It's the interface between the two. Now, that Nefesh Bahamis, that soul of the life force, connects with the blood, or as the mystics say, the refined fraction of the blood, which the Kabbalist scholar, physicist Aryeh Kaplan explained as the electric impulses in the brain. Based on the Kabbalah, it says the refined part of the blood. So this animal soul, this living force, is connected to the blood, to the or to the electrical impulses, connects to the blood, and on its higher level connects back up to the divine soul. The animal soul, though, since it is in this world, it's affected by the principal components of this world. And those are called the Arba Yasodos, the 4 elements. This is not your periodic table. We know there's more than 4 elements, but the deeper understanding of how the world divides up into the process is essentially 4. And they are, there are ways to understand it. It's like the four theories and the 4 forces: the gravitational force, the weak force. So there's different ways to understand what the 4 represent in today's scientific world. But be that as it may, there are 4 philosophical spiritual poles, and they are fire, water, wind, and earth. Now, since the life force comes from and is connected to this physical world, it is influenced by these 4 approaches, these 4 different directions. And therefore, it could be used for the positive or the negative. Let me explain. Fire represents, in my life force, which is where the personality of the person really is going to shine. That can be haughtiness, right? Fire rises up. Oh, I'm above everyone else. It's also anger because someone's going to stop me from what I want to do. Get angry. So fire on the negative is going to be haughtiness and anger. On the other side, you have water. Water, on the negative, is the pursuit of physical pleasure. Now, why is that? If I ask anyone to imagine, I want you to imagine a certain place, the most beautiful place you want to be in your mind. You'll see that what you're imagining is there's always water in the picture. I don't care if you're imagining a desert. There's a stream there someplace, because water makes everything grow. Water is thereby representing of the great pleasures. Okay, so you have fire and you have water, the negative. Now I could use them for positive too. The fire that I have could go and could raise me up spiritually, and it could actually lead to humility as I rise up in this connection, which we'll discuss later. Water also, water can make it for spiritual pleasures, because I taste the beauty of something. We'll get to that. There's then wind. Where does wind come in the negative? Wind in the negative is people doing blah, blah, blah. It's very funny, right? People could boast, just want to talk about themselves, the fish stories, or people just want to chatter. That is a misuse of the wind. And that's also connected with this life force, the Nefesh Bahamis. It can be used positive too, as we'll get to. The lowest part of the 4th element, which is the lowest part, is called earth. And that is connected with the negative, with sadness. And you see, people can't move, and laziness as a byproduct of that. So these are 4 different elements that affect your traits, because that is where your traits reside. And you and me, we have the possibility of taking the traits, the fire, to use it properly, the water, the wind, and the earth, and blend them in a way that will allow us to express ourselves in all these dimensions in a full and proper way. But if we don't, fire will lead to haughtiness. Water will lead to the idea of just chasing your pleasures, boasting, and then lazy and sad. Depending on which one of these is more your root, you'll have that tendency. If you're a person that's more earth, you're more the lazy type. If you're a fire, you're the type A personality. You're going to do this. but you're just jumping to those things as opposed to mastering them and blending them. And that's why we're going to see the word for traits in Hebrew is not traits, it's midot. Midot means measurements. So you have to put them in the right measure. Okay, if a person says, listen, I'm a fiery guy, so is it better to be not fiery? No, I know when to be fiery. Be fiery in the right way. Okay, so this is where the action is, because above the animal soul, or the life force, as we're calling it, is not really where your traits reside, because that's not really where it's good and bad. Then you're ready into a holy soul. Just for a moment of mystical understanding, that's really why it's the 4 letters of God's name, the Yud and the Hey and the Vav and the Hey. That is really on the soul level. That's the root of there, and there it's not damaged. When it comes into the point when the animal soul, the life force, connects to the physical, that's where these 4 different elements take on their physical nature, and they can be used for good or for bad. Okay, now, so what we're going to do in this series is we're going to go through understanding the mind's interaction to the heart, and then the things that are pulling us, if we get our wants properly, but still the fire's going to pull us here, the war's going to pull us there, how to master that and how to mix it and mingle it to get it to where it should be as a full expression of who we are. But what I want to do now is explain one fundamental and very deep concept to really understand how these things interplay. First, I told you that the will is what you should want. You should want wholeness. You should want completion. You should want expression. Bring out your real self. Well, that really is great ambition, right? So ambition would seem to be very good. Okay, but we could say maybe not ambition for foolish things, but ambition for spiritual things would all seem to be good. And that's not so simple, because the truth is, when a person is as complete ambition, even for spiritual things, and he's going to go, nothing's going to stop him, that may be a problem. How do I know it's a problem? Because when I look at the 4 elements, the earth, the fire, water, air, and earth. So I said to you the negatives. I'm talking about one of the positives of them. The positive of earth is contentment, right? On the negative side, it's laziness and sadness. And on the positive side of earth is the ability to be content with what you have and what you are. But that seems to be a contradiction. If ambition and striving, okay, spiritual greatness is amazing. How do you put in a sense of contentment? Well, I should be content with what I am. I want to be more than what I am. So how do you put these 2 together? And this we need to understand, because this will be a basis of the whole process that we're going to talk about. Yes, you should not be content with what you are today, because what we all are is limited, no matter how great you may be. But if we understand that the root of what I am is so great, it is the expression of divinity that's been connected to me, that my soul has the ability to experience this that's going to be eternal. So by understanding my root, whoa, I am a holy soul in its roots, and that everything about me is connected to that, and that's the highest pinnacle, and it's my portion. Then what I really want to do is to bring out myself. So we're not content with whatever we are now. Oh, I'm a couch potato, I'm content with that. No, that's not good. You need the ambition to want to go and to reach the highest levels. But the highest levels we're going to reach are really the deepest root of ourselves. And that's a very amazing concept. When you shoot the arrow up in the air, it comes back on the heavy spot. It comes back on the end. Why? Because the thing returns to its root. If we think our root is very low, then it's very low. Then what am I doing here? But if we really realize, no, the root of who we are is so elevated, then at that point, I am ambitious to bring that out. But in the deeper sense, I just want what is me and mine. And that's what the sages tell us about this trait of being content with what you are. It's an amazing thing. There's a verse in Proverbs that says, Sone matnos yichya. A guy who hates gifts, he will live. Everyone loves gifts, birthday gifts, and you got Mother's Day and Father's Day. Everyone's like gifts. What does it mean? If a guy hates gifts, he lives? The sage is telling us something very, very deep. It's telling us is that when you want gifts from a perspective of I am lacking, I need, I am not whole, fill me, give me because I am lacking, then you become a person who is lacking always. You don't see in yourself the stability that this is what you are. And that is a death sentence. Because you can never fill it. You got a hole in your pocket. Whatever you put in just going to go out because you feel I'm lacking. And that's why I explained to you once the story about the conqueror Alexander the Great. An amazing story in the Talmud. Very, very deep. It's a mystical story. It says that Alexander the Great, when he conquered the whole world, he gets to the edge. He gets to the gates of the Garden of Eden. And he tries to get in. He can't get in. And he hears a voice says, no, this is the Sha'ar Hashem. This is the gate. For God, only the righteous could come in. He says, do you know who I am? I'm Alexander the Great. You have to let me in. I conquered the whole world. There's no, only righteous can come in here. You can't come in here. He says, listen, I came all this way. At least give me something. So it says that a skull comes flying out. So what is this? He takes a skull and he takes his gold and jewel and diamonds. He weighs out the skull and he sees the skull is so heavy. He cannot outweigh it with no matter what he puts on the other side of the scale. The skull is always heavier. He says, what is this? They say, take some earth and put it on the eye sockets of the skull. He does that, and all of a sudden, it doesn't weigh that much. The gold and silver weighs more. So what is this? The voice tells him, this is the eye. These are the eyes of a person that is never satiated. You could see it. You're going to want more and more and more. And that's Alexander the Great. That's what it's teaching us. He was the conqueror. He died by, I think it's 33. He died and he conquered the whole world. And there was no point of, oh, this is me. And I have something. I know I got to get more. And the eyes kept seeing it, and it wanted more because it was never able to tune in to the sense of, I am trying to reveal me, and I don't want you. As a matter of fact, nothing that you have is really even good for me, believe it or not. The person's car you think is better for you, it's not true. Because everyone gets what they need in their process. And so what I have right now is what I need. Yes, I might be able to change it, and I change in the future when I'm able to receive more. But right now, what I have is what I need, and what you have is not what's good for me. The challenges that I have are my challenges. They are to bring out my essence. And this is a very, very deep thing. This is what the Talmud tells us. There are two letters in the Hebrew alphabet that are almost exactly the same. The sound is essentially the same. Aleph and ayin, and they're pronounced pretty much the same. There's a slight difference, which today only the Sephardim really could do, is they say ayin with a little more of a throat sound. But Aleph and ayin are very similar. As a matter of fact, they change in certain discussions of the Torah. They will use the Aleph for the ayin for the Aleph to teach me different laws. Well, what's the difference between Aleph and ayin? It's a very, very central difference. What's the difference? The difference is that the letter Aleph in Hebrew is the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet. It's oneness. It has absolutely no sound, not even the slight guttural tone. No, it's silent. It's ineffable, and it represents God. That's why the word Aleph is the word Aluf. Aluf means the great one, the master of the universe. That's what it is, an Aluf. It also means to Aleph means to learn. Like you might have heard, they have like an ulpan. You go and you learn a language. It's the word Aluf. Aleph means to learn. But when you take the word, you want to learn about the higher wisdom. Take the word Aleph and spell it backwards. It spells the word Pele, which means you try to learn it. But a Pele means it's a wonderment. It's beyond what I could understand. Aleph is the level of godliness. It's the ultimate spiritual letter. It's oneness, and it's the godliness aspect. That's even why the way it's written with like it has a yud on top and a yud on the bottom, a vav in the middle. Those are three letters that very deep we'll may discuss another time. But if you add the numerical value of each Hebrew letter, you come up with a yud in the top, yud in the bottom, vav in the middle, so 26, which is the numerical value of God's name. Even the aleph, the little compact aleph, represents godliness. It's ineffable. What is ayin? It sounds very similar, but ayin is the word for eye. Okay, so what does that mean? So the eye looks out and it sees the outside world. The aleph looks in and sees the spiritual world, sees what's really me. The ayin sees what's you. And I want the other thing. And that's so amazing. That's why we take the Hebrew words. You'll see it keeps playing this way. For example, the word ani is I, okay, with an aleph. So if I look at it and I say, this is me, I understand the root of who I am. I am a godly spark. I am my unique ability to experience everything in this world is what was my gift. I have to get to that root. So I see the aleph, the inside of me, ani. But if it's spelled with an ayin, ani, it means a poor person. So when I'm not looking at myself, I'm looking at what you have. I'm going to be poor because I got this hole in my thing. I can never be satiated. Like another one. So it says that when Adam and Eve sinned, so God made for them kusnos or. He made for them clothing of skin, of or with an ayin is skin. But originally it says, the mystics say they had what's called kusnos or. They had clothing of light. The Hebrew word or with an aleph is light. But when it becomes with an ayin, it becomes external, and the light is blocked. It's coarse. It's physical. I have little pores that can get the light out, but I'm physically blocked because the ayin represents I'm not focusing on the inside, the inner light, but rather I'm focused on the outside, and then there's a physical block. That's the last one. The word in Hebrew for wealth is osher. Osher with an ayin means to be wealthy. So a person has a lot. Okay, so then they're called an ashir. They're wealthy. But as we said, if I have a lot, but I feel I don't, and I want something else, I'm actually a poor person because I don't. I'm not. The thing is not the jewels itself. It's how it makes me feel. I feel I'm rich. So if you feel that you're a lacking person, you're going to feel poor no matter how much money you have. And if you have less money, but you feel you have everything, you're a rich person. So the word osher with an ayin means external wealth. If you put it with an aleph, osher with an aleph, it's the word for happiness and contentment because I feel that's what I am. This is the introduction to our system. We have the mind, and now we want to know, what do I want? I want to express the deeper part of myself, the essence of what I am, and that's going to bring me happiness. Not if I'm wanting the physical things, that's going to be very temporal, but expressing the wholeness of myself, that will be the connection of love, of oneness, source of what I am in the spiritual discussions. But in the system of the human being, there are different levels. There's the soul, holy soul, connected to the body. The soul pulls one way, the body pulls the other way. And the soul then has the lowest element that connects to the physical, the life force, which is already now in the world of my traits. And it pulls me different ways. It pulls towards fire, towards water, towards wind, towards earth. And I have to use those traits positively and not get swayed in a system that's not good. And the first way I want to introduce this to us is to say that although the ambition of attaining greatness is so important, but if we lose the context of understanding that the greatness that we can attain is who we really are, and that's the goal, is to express yourself, because the root of yourself is that great, and your ambition is to uncover your greatness, and you don't want someone else's, then we can take a second and say, hey, you want to give me a present? Happy, but I don't need it. Maybe I'll take it as an expression of our relationship. Yeah, that's nice. But don't feel we're running around. All of the answers are inside. The ability to understand that what you have is your gift of your highest level of your expression in this world, and your goal is to uncover it. Okay? That is session 1, and we will later. Thanks. Bye.